Hi all, I'm Revati, working as assistant professor in Konganadu College of Engineering and Technology. Today, we are going to explain CN Computer Networks Lab experiments. In this, we have 11 experiment. One by one, I will explain. And then first experiment, implementation of stop and wait protocol and sliding window protocol. And what is the object of this experiment is to implement the stop and wait protocol and sliding window protocol for data transmission. First, I explain what is stop and wait protocol and sliding window protocol. And then stop and wait protocol, in this the sender transmits the frame to the receiver, and it wait for the acknowledgement from the receiver before sending the next frame, and it ensure each frame is received successfully. And what is sliding window protocol means, window of frames to send the multiple frames at once to the receiver, and the sender moves the window as frames are acknowledged. So these are the explanation of stop and wait protocol and sliding window protocol. Let me explain you the program of stop and wait and sliding window protocol. And this is the program, the implementation of stop and wait and sliding window protocol. And first one is and I have imported three packages. And first one is java.net, and it is used for containing the classes for networking, including the server circuit and the socket. And second package is used for input and output operation, such as data input stream for reading the input and print stream for sending the output. And next we'll see the class declaration. And here the main class is slide sender, and this is the main class. And public static void main is a main method. And in here, I'm using the method like throw exception, like IO exception or unknown host exception, which is used to passed on the environment. Next, initialization. And here server socket SCR and new server socket 10, and socket s equal to set dot accept. I have initialized these variables. For server socket 10, it is used for creating the server socket, and that it listens on port 10, and it will be waiting for a client to connect on this port. For this purpose, I use the variable. And accept method, it blocks the call that wait for the incoming client connection. Once the client connect, it return the socket object to communicate with the client. And next, input output stream. Here so I'm using three variable: user input, socket input, and socket output. And user input is used for the reads the user input from the console, or we can call it as keyboard. And socket input, it reads the data sent by the client. And socket output is it sends the data to the client. And buffer and variables, see the buffer and variables. Here a buffer used a fixed size array of 8 strings used for the temporarily stored for the frames that the server will send. And sptr, it is a pointer to track where the next message will go to the buffer. And window size is 8, already we know that, meaning up to 8 frames can be handled at once. So num frames, it is number of frames that user want to send. And choice is a variable to store whether the user wants to continue sending or more frames. And here and this loop is used for repeating the process of sending the frames until the user decides to stop. And I'm getting the server asks the user to input how many frames they need to send, and the number of frames is sent to the client. And next, check for window size constraint. Yes. If number of frames is checked to ensure it doesn't exceed the window size. If the user tries to send more than 7 frames, then the server prints an error message and exits the loop. So the num frames less than or equal to window size minus 1. The window size minus 1 ensures that the server only sends up to 7 frames. This allows only one frame to be reserved for acknowledgement. Right. The next frame sending. So reading the frames, the server reads the specified number of messages from the user and sending a frame. Each frame is sent to the client using socket output dot println. The SPTR, buffer, it's a buffer pointer. It is incremented and wrapped around the modulo operator. It ensures it stays within the bounds of the buffer size. Next, after sending the frames, the server waits for an acknowledgement from the client. The acknowledgement number is read and displayed, which tells the server that client has successfully received the frames. The next, we have to ask the user if they want to continue. Do you want to send more frames? And if they say yes, the loop continues as long as the user responds with yes to the question of whether they want to send more frames. If the user enters no, the loop terminates. And we have to close all the connection. Socket dot close is close the connection to the client, and socket server socket dot close, it closes the server socket and stopping the server from the accepting the new client connections. And now we will see the receiver program. Yes. So server uh, sending the frames to the receiver, and it waits for the receiver acknowledgement until the receiver responds. It wait for the acknowledgement. And now we'll see the receiver program, and here we are importing the two packages and input java.net. It is a networking feature including the socket and inet address, and java.io that star. This package will be used for input output handling, specifically data input stream for reading the data and print stream for sending the data. And then after that we have to declare the class and class slide receiver. This class represents the receiver in the sliding window protocol. And after that the public static void main, it is the main method. This main method starts the program execution and it throws the exception in case of networking or IO errors. Next, we have to establish the socket connection. For that, a socket s equal to new socket inet address get local host of 10. A client socket which is used for a client socket is created to connect to the server. And this one inet address that get a local host, and inet address the object gets a local host address, that is a machine where the program is running. And port 10, the socket connects to port 10 where the server is running. So that is here. And the next one, you have to setting up the input and output streams. And this one, socket input. Input. Yes. this input it reads the in this one reads the data by the server, and it is the socket output. It sends the data back to the server. For that purpose it will be used. And next is the variable initialization. This pointer rptr, it is a pointer for the buffer to track which message or frame is being processed next. It starts at -1 because the first frame will increment it to 0. And window size, RWS, it's a receiver side window size is 8. It means the 8 frames can be processed before requiring the acknowledgement. And NF is a number of frames, and RBUF, it is a buffer, it is an array to store up to 8 frames. And CH, which is used for choice, getting a choice, it is a string to store whether the receiver wants to continue the processing the frames. So for that this will be used. And the next one, and this do loop, for what is the purpose of this loop is the receiver first reads the number of frames the server wants to send the frame from socket input. Next we have to check the window size and processing the frames. Yes. Here you have to check if the number of frames to be received is within the window size, that is not more than 7 frames. If the number of frames exceeds a window size, it prints an error and terminates. So next one, the loop, here we have to use the for loop here. Up to number of frames we have to use here. And it increments the buffer pointer, wraps it around using modulo 8, and store the received message in the buffer, and prints the frame number and received message. And the next one is this one. Here what is the purpose of this one is the receiver window size is reduced temporarily by subtracting the number of NF, that is called number of frames, because it processing those frames. And here we have to here we are getting the acknowledgement. After receiving the frames, the receiver sends an acknowledgement number, and receives the acknowledgement number, that is RPTR. Here we are adding one value back to the sender, which indicates the next expected frame number. And window size query, and here after acknowledging, the window size is restored by adding back the number of frames are processed here. And next, the termination. So if the number of frames exceeds the available window size, the program prints an error message and exits the loop. After processing the frames, the receiver checks if it should continue by reading the server's choice. If the server says yes, then it continues, otherwise it exits. Then we have to close all the socket connection. Once the communication is complete, the receiver closes the socket connection. And here this is the output. First one, we have to enter the number of frames 4, and server side, this is the server side output. And enter 4 messages to be sent. We have to enter 4 messages, and the receiver receives 1 by 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So up to 3 it will be get. After if it exceeds, then it will throws an exception. Here server acknowledgement received for 4 frames. Do you want to send more frames? They will ask. If it is no, it stops the connection. If it is if it is yes, then it will we have to get more frames. And these are the explanation of implementation of stop and wait and uh, sliding window protocol. I hope everyone can understand my explanation. Thank you.